I founded Muslims for Choice, but also I'm an executive committee member for the Abortion Rights Campaign, which is the UK's national pro-choice campaign. So just to give you a brief overview about what abortion rights does, is that it's campaigning to extend and defend a woman's right to choose. And it will oppose any attempts to curtail those rights. But also it's looking to build links with the wider sections of society in order to build a movement that is reflective of society. So, just to how I got into it, it's it's a bit of sort of roundabout way, but my entry into the abortion rights campaign came about largely through my campaigning experiences, which started when I was a student, when I was, working for Palestine Solidarity, against fascism, against the BNP and the EDL, and working on the Black Students campaign as well, so getting Black Students officer Aaron Kiley elected. And my experiences in each of those campaigns brought me in touch or into contact with, such a diverse group of people, including lots of Muslims, and each of them having kind of their own unique take on the world. And it was really quite sort of a comforting or kind of validating experience for me, because you had LGBT Muslims, you had, anti-war Muslims, you had feminist Muslims, whatever, who had the confidence to assert that this is how they view the world, this is the actions that they believe society needs to undertake in order to change the world, and that kind of thing. And so it helped me think through over what my perception or what my views were on women's rights. And I'd never been like anti-choice, like the sort of really hardcore right-wing Christians that stand outside abortion clinics and, kind of harass women, telling them that they're going to hell, or hold up like mutilated fetuses and whatnot. So, Islam has quite a sort of tolerant position on it, and my views at the time sort of married up with the mainstream views, which were that it's permissible in sort of limited circumstances. And my views kind of opened up more and more as I had more and more discussions with Muslims, particularly with, and I'm not saying that, this group are any more pro-choice than any other group within the community. It's just that I was more in touch with them. So a lot of medics that I spoke to, we had these really long, in-depth discussions about what it means to be pro-choice, and whether being pro-choice and being you can reconcile being religious and being pro-choice, and having a more liberal approach to it. And my sort of conclusions, my conclusions that I drew from all these discussions were that that there isn't one kind of monolithic view on abortion within Islam, that there is a diversity of views, and that diversity should be respected. So whilst the Quran doesn't actually have any passages that outlaws abortion, what it does say is that, sorry, I've just got my notes somewhere else as well, that abortion, that infanticide, so killing children, is unlawful, and that's haram, you shouldn't be doing that. But when it comes to actual abortion, there's no actual passages, there's lots of hadith that scholars refer to. So, I think the mainstream kind of interpretation of what scholars say is that the soul of the fetus, soul enters the fetus, I think about 120 days. So within that time frame, abortions are permissible. And other scholars say that if the life of the mother is threatened, she can have an abortion, and so on. And in cases of rape as well, abortions are permissible. So there's a very wide ranging view, and as well, as Shamil was saying earlier, that Islam is about a faith. It's supposed to be about justice, or it should be. Islam should be about justice, but also for me, Islam is about compassion. Those were the tenets that I kind of embedded in myself when I was growing up, the ones that I was taught, and so compassion and understanding. And so, if a woman is in a very difficult situation, it's not upon us to pass judgment on her, because we're not in the position to pass judgment. That's not our right. What we should be doing instead is providing her support, and if she wants to pursue a particular decision, then we should support that, and if she doesn't, then we should support that as well. Whatever, it's her right to choose at the end of the day, her bodily right. And men don't have to worry about getting pregnant, but women do. And I say this because I was speaking to one of my doctor friends yesterday. She's not a Muslim, but she has lots of colleagues who are Muslim, and a lot of these women already have kids, and they've fallen pregnant again, and they're like, well, I don't want another child, which is understandable, because the amount of stuff that your body goes through when you're pregnant is like, it terrifies me. Anyway, but so they don't want to have another baby, but then they want to know what kind of support is out there if, say, they chose to have an abortion. So obviously they go to their husbands, and their husbands' attitudes are like, well, do what you want. So, and it's like, that's quite sad, because there is, and I say it's sad, like I know lots of other people would think, oh, well, a man's not telling the woman what to do, so that's a good thing, right? And you would think that's a good thing, but because there is so much stigma around abortion, not just within the Muslim community, but outside society as well, when you're looking for positive affirmation in embarking on this decision, you are wanting some kind of support from your immediate network. And if that's not there, then you feel as if you're being pushed into a corner. Now, I'm sure that when these women have their babies, they'll be happy and they'll raise them very well and whatnot. But it's the fact that they didn't have to, or they didn't have that support network. And I guess that's something that Muslims for Choice can do, which is the online initiative that I set up a couple of years ago, which is about bringing together pro-choice Muslims to defend a woman's right to choose and defend existing UK legislation. Now, the way I directly got involved with the abortion rights campaign was around about 2014, 2015. So what happened in 2014, at the end of 2014, there was a Conservative MP called Fiona Bruce who attempted to amend the existing law on abortion. So just to make the audience aware, abortion is part of the criminal code. So there are very restrictive circumstances legally. It doesn't translate that into practice, but very limiting circumstances legally. That means that if you violate that criteria for, if you wanted an abortion, then you could potentially be liable for criminal arrest. Now that doesn't happen in practice, obviously, because otherwise women would be getting arrested now, and they're not. But what this amendment that Fiona Bruce was attempting to put through effectively would have criminalised abortion en masse. Now, so the way they did it was very, very clever, actually, and if you think about it, was the way they did it was to attempt to divide the pro-choice movement. So what she said was that her proposed amendment was to criminalise women terminating their pregnancies on the grounds that the sex of the fetus is female. So this was quite a divisive issue at the time. Lots of feminists, lots of campaigners were thinking, well, yeah, actually, does that make me a sexist if I oppose this amendment? Because we shouldn't be terminating, female fetuses, etc. So abortion rights intervened into this quite well with three very clear messages, which is that this was a clear attempt to roll back abortion rights, and that attempt should be opposed. Criminalizing women from having an abortion or exercising their right to choose does not actually eliminate the root causes of sexism. And then thirdly, which is which is quite relevant to us here, was the racial implications of this amendment, because what it meant was that particular communities would be targeted on the grounds that they were viewed as uniquely sexist. Now, as you know, given the daily smears against Muslims, in the Daily Mail and the Sun and whatnot, we are painted as, 10 minutes, okay. We are painted as uniquely bad on women's rights. We are painted as uniquely oppressive, telling women, to wear the hijab or the burqa or the veil or the whatever. So so this proposed amendment would have meant even more scrutiny and more intervention into the Muslim community, the Asian community, and also it could have potentially breached doctor-patient confidentiality. So, because if a doctor thinks that you're terminating on the grounds of the sex of the fetus, the doctor is then obliged to report that to the police. So it's obviously very, very worrying and very concerning. And Abortion Rights, the campaign, was the only organisation, the only women's rights-based organisation at that time that was connecting up all those dots. So it wasn't just saying that it's curtailing abortion rights, but actually that it's quite racist, actually. So then, that kind of prompted me to join the movement, as it were. So then, whilst sitting on the executive campaign as the treasurer of the campaign, we kind of had lots of discussions about what I alluded to earlier, which was how to make abortion rights more reflective of society, because it's predominantly been, it's been white women that have been involved, but where are the black women, where are the African Caribbean women, where are the Asian women, where are the Christian women, where are the Muslim women? And so whilst we've kind of improved that on certain fronts, we have more African Caribbean women, more Christian women on the committee, and now they have a Muslim on the committee. I guess my initiative, or what I'm trying to do, is then try to reach out to more Muslims in the community and get them on board with the pro-choice movement, which is then what led me to set up Muslims for Choice. So it's at the minute it's an online Twitter account, which and with the aims of it becoming a fully fledged organisation, but that obviously takes stages. But also I set up a Facebook group called Pro-Choice Muslims, which Hera is also a part of, to discuss kind of how, as the Muslim community, we go forwards about, having our own voice within the pro-choice movement, but also doing more outreach within the Muslim community, and getting them more engaged with the politics of the campaign, because ultimately, the purpose of the abortion rights, the purpose of the pro-choice movement is about defending a woman's right to choose. So it's quite dispiriting if you then can't exercise that bodily autonomy. Like, whatever the reason why you need to terminate pregnancy, whatever, I'm not going to pass judgment, and I don't need to know why. And none of us need to know why. What we should be doing is trusting women to, we trust them to have children. Why can't we trust them to terminate pregnancies? It's, it just makes sense. So I mean, I anticipate that there will be more struggles, because there is a socially conservative element within the community. But, I'm also quite heartened by the fact that I was invited today. So thank you for that. To kind of get in touch with more sort of like-minded Muslims to discuss kind of where we want to go. And then I had another point, and I can't remember because I haven't written it down. But yeah, Muslims, as we know, are very, very organised in the UK, like super organised. And in fact, just some of the religious groups are quite jealous of how great we are in terms of when we collect food and money during Ramadan, and for like anti-poverty sort of relief funding, we're great at that. So we can harness that collective power for something sort of socially progressive, and yeah, I think, because I cannot remember. But yeah, so in terms of where Muslims for Choice is going, so one of the things I'd envisaged it was asking individual Muslims to conduct an interview with me just over the phone, which Hera's also agreed to, which I will get round to doing, and trying to get different Muslim voices from across society, so whether they're lawyers, they're doctors, they're professionals, or they're just students, or just anyone. Just to ask them, how kind of they reconcile being pro-choice and being Muslim, and kind of what are the sort of barriers or obstacles they think are things that we need to overcome.